Hi there, Frank Thacker here, and welcome to the Daily Peacemaker. Um, true story. I'm going to embellish a little bit, but I don't know. A couple of weeks ago, I was at local bar with a good friend of mine. We're talking about this and that, and somehow the topic of the tipping point came up. I forget. I think I said something about have you heard of the tipping point? And something like that. And he goes, the tipsy point? And I said, no, the tipping point. He said, what are you talking about? And I said, this notion of a tipping point. And he goes, tipsy? You calling me tipsy? He got off on this whole tirade about, that I was saying he drinks too much. And I had this insight that instead of getting into this, I don't know, discussion, argument with him as to I'm talking about the tipping point, not the tipsy point. Um, I said to him, you can go with the tipsy point, because it's the same thing in a way. And it was sort of in retrospect, as I look back on that, it was, I think the reason that popped into my head, going instead of getting into an argument about tipping versus tipsy, um, because of my training in nonviolence and the creativeness of it, I said, "Oh, I could go with the tipsy point." So I said, okay, let's go with that. And I said, so you know how when you're drinking and you have a couple of drinks and you start, not you personally, I had to say, oh, not you, but someone, because I didn't want him getting angry at me. So I said, when someone's drinking and they have a couple of drinks, so they sort of start getting a little tipsy. And he said, yeah, I know about that. Yeah. And I thought to myself, yeah, you do. But so I said, you start doing that. It takes a while to get you feeling to that point where you're feeling a little tipsy. But all of a sudden, almost, not quite all of a sudden, you have another drink and you not only have come to the tipsy point, but you've actually, I don't know, fallen off your bar stool. So I said the point is in any system, as things move forward, there comes a point where the progress before was kind of slow and methodical, and then the system or the people in it, the system, I guess, comes to a tipping point, and after that, it really moves forward fast. So I said, take um, a sports team that's having a really bad season and they're not doing too well and they're getting discouraged. Excuse me. And a couple of people on the team decide to put some life into this team. Let's get us going. And so they start working, and gradually other people pick it up. And then at some point, it seems, ooh, the whole team is into it and they're really enthused and they're playing better. So that type of thing you could apply it to any system. So I said to my buddy, apply it to the human system, and look at the notion, is that system, we humans, moving towards a culture of peace? People talk about all the time they want peace, and hopefully we can have peace, and I'm praying for peace, those types of things. So are we moving towards a culture of peace? And I would always define culture of peace as a culture in which people respect each other. I think we all, no, I believe we all have an inherent worth and dignity, and that needs to be honored and respect, which means you don't go around calling people names or bad mouthing them or talking behind their back, that type of thing. You may disagree with them, but you don't have to castigate them. So, and then arguments and conflicts are solved in a nonviolent way. So, are we moving in that direction? Are we at a tipping point in that direction? And I'm not sure if we haven't reached the tipping point. I would say we're very close. Two things. Well, there are many things, but two very concrete things that make me believe that we are moving to the tipping point if we are not already there. One is the notion of meditation, which is tied to inner peace, and the number and the increasing number of different practices of meditation, different organizations offering meditative workshops, the number of people that now incorporate meditation into their daily lives, that has certainly grown immensely in the last 40 or 50 years. So that's the meditation. The other thing that seems to be really growing is the whole notion of nonviolence. I've mentioned in the past that the word nonviolence is relatively new to our culture. It's maybe 100 years old when that word nonviolence first came. Doesn't mean that people weren't practicing nonviolence long before that, but it's become part of the culture, part of the ordinary everyday culture. So again, there's workshops around the practice of the power and the practice of nonviolence, applying it to daily life. There's tons of books, there's a bunch of them. Seizing the Nonviolent Moments. There's this one, the Peace Book. It's 108 simple ways to create a more peaceful world. It's just lots and lots of that stuff going on. And it seems to be increasing. So we're definitely moving towards the tipping point if we're not there quite. And the thing about the notion of the tipping point that I find, it inspires hope, that it moves the system forward, and or you believe anyway, that it can reach a certain point where it really speeds up. And it's not like 50% or 51%. It's smaller than that, actually. They've done some studies. People have probably heard of the 100th monkey and the peeling of bananas, and how when a certain amount of monkeys figured out how to peel a banana, it just spread all over the place. There are studies around that, but then there are studies that said that kind of debunked that. Excuse me. But the whole point is the culture moving toward, have we reached the tipping point in our pursuit or our desire to create a culture of peace, or are we close? So I would say definitely we're close if we haven't reached it. And that gives me a lot of hope, and I hope that it gives you a lot of hope. And so then you kind of spin it back to us as individuals, this notion, I only one person, I can't do much. And again, if you look at it in the big picture, each of us is an important part of that system. And so the more we can live our lives in a way that is moving the system towards this culture of peace, the greater it is. That's something we can all do. And I would say a helpful thing is, no matter what you're doing, work-wise or family-wise, if you're doing it in the framework of nonviolence, that's for me, that is a really good container. So I'm going to leave it at that. So the pieces are tipping point, or as my buddy would say, the tipsy point. Are we there? If we're not, we're close. And so that gives us a lot of hope. And some of the elements that will carry us closer to that, or speed it up if we're coming down the hill, is the meditation and the daily living of nonviolence. So let me leave it there. I hope that you get some hope out of this to keep the culture moving forward, to keep your eye on the prize, as Dr. King would say, because we're getting there. We can do this, that's for sure. So we're counting on you to move us forward. So with that in mind, I will say, may your day go well, and may you walk in beauty. And as always, open for comments, questions, ideas, and always good to be with you. All right, take care. Peace.